What if I told you that you could own a tiny piece of a 6,000-year-old artifact? I know, it sounds like something out of a fantasy novel, right? But a very strange, very real art deal is making it happen. Today, we're going to dive into how this one deal is unlocking a massive tech shift that's literally changing the idea of ownership itself. Okay, let's start with a number. $300 million. What pops into your head? A super yacht? A Hollywood blockbuster budget? Well, the real answer is way more interesting, and it's pointing us straight toward the future. So that number, that's the price tag on 20,000 pieces of rare art, and some of this stuff is over 6,000 years old. A company called JP3E just scooped it all up. But here's the kicker. They're not building a museum. Nope. They bought all this ancient history to turn it into digital tokens. Which leads us to the big question, right? Why on earth would they do that? Well, to figure that out, we've got to look a little closer at this pretty strange art deal. So, here are the players. You've got JP3E Holdings as the buyer. The seller is the Khan Gallery out of Dubai. And the prize? 20,000 pieces of ancient, super rare art. But get this, the payment wasn't cash. It was 150 million shares of JP3E's own stock. So you can see, this wasn't just a shopping spree. It's a really strategic play to bridge our physical past with our digital future. I mean, think about the contrast here. It's pretty wild. On one side, you've got these ancient physical artifacts, stuff that's notoriously difficult to sell quickly. And on the other side, you've got this cutting-edge, futuristic blockchain tech. The whole point is to take something you can touch, something solid, and make its value totally liquid, so it's super easy to trade. And if you want to know the big idea behind all this, just listen to the CEO, John K. Park. He said, and I'm quoting here, JP3E is, quoting, opening this door to make it possible for many people to, quote unquote, join in ownership of such artifacts never before imaginable. So it's really all about democratization, right? Taking something that's always been super exclusive and opening it up to, well, pretty much everyone. Okay, so how in the world do you take a 6,000-year-old vase and turn it into something you can just, trade on your phone? Well, the magic behind it is a process called tokenization. And honestly, the easiest way to think about it is like slicing up a really, really expensive pizza. But first, we gotta understand the problem they're trying to fix. These old artifacts, they're what you call illiquid assets. That's just a fancy term that means they're worth a ton of money, but they are a massive pain to sell. I mean, you can't just walk into a shop with a priceless statue and expect to get fair market value in cash, right? You lose a fortune. And this is where our pizza analogy comes in handy to explain the solution. So imagine the whole pizza is a priceless painting. Then, a smart contract, which is basically just a bit of code that does its thing automatically. It comes in and slices up the ownership of that painting into millions of digital tokens. These are your pizza slices. Now, anyone can buy and sell these individual slices online. And the blockchain? That's your permanent, unchangeable receipt. It's a public record that proves exactly who owns every single slice. Pretty cool, huh? So let's just recap the why here. Why do this? Well, you're creating liquidity for stuff that's normally locked up. You're enabling what's called fractional ownership. You don't need to be a billionaire to own a piece of a masterpiece anymore. And that, in turn, makes these super valuable assets accessible to way more people. Plus, the whole thing is transparent because every transaction is on the blockchain for everyone to see. All right, I know what you might be thinking. This whole digital ownership thing, it sounds kind of niche, right? Just for art collectors or something. But that art deal, that's just a tiny piece of a way, way bigger puzzle. This exact same idea is already the engine behind entire digital worlds. Take a look at this. This isn't from some sci-fi movie. This is a map of the metaverse as it exists right now, put together by HSBC. Every single one of those little dots is a different virtual world. And they all share one crucial thing. Digital ownership isn't just some fluffy idea. It's the literal engine that makes their economies run. And let's be clear, we're not just talking about video games here. These are actual functioning economies. People are buying and selling digital art, virtual real estate, all sorts of digital stuff. And it's all built on that exact same principle of tokenization we were just talking about, turning bits and bytes into things you can actually own and trade. Now, it's easy to think this is all just for gaming. And yeah, that's a huge piece of the pie, about half of it. But look at what else is going on. A full quarter is for social stuff and entertainment. Think virtual concerts. And then you have these really interesting chunks for user-generated content and even for business and education. It's spreading everywhere. And the scale we're talking about is just staggering. On one end, you have a giant like Roblox with hundreds of millions of users every month. But it's not just about the huge gaming platforms. You've also got these dedicated blockchain worlds like Decentraland, and even super specialized platforms for business and education like Engage VR. This tech is absolutely being used across the board. So we've looked at this weird art deal on one hand, and this massive, sprawling digital universe on the other. So what happens when these two worlds completely collide? Well, that's where we start talking about the future of ownership itself, and a transformation that could be absolutely massive. So what's the thread connecting ancient art with a digital universe? It's this one big idea, real-world asset tokenization. You'll hear it called RWA tokenization. And all it is, really, is the process of taking something from the physical world, art, a building, whatever, and creating a digital tradable version of it online, just like the stuff people are buying and selling in the metaverse. And the potential market for this? Oh, get ready for this number. A report from the Boston Consulting Group and ADDX projects that the market for tokenizing real-world assets is going to hit a mind-blowing $16 trillion by 2030. Let's just let that sink in for a second. $16 trillion. To put that in perspective, that's projected to be about 10% of the entire planet's GDP. This isn't some niche little tech trend. We are talking about a fundamental rewiring of the global economy. And all of this leads us to one final, really big question to chew on. If any asset, I'm talking about anything from ancient art to a skyscraper to a rare collectible, if it can be digitally sliced into 1 million pieces and owned by anyone, what does it even mean to own something anymore?